that I was there. Later on, I was going to Teakwood.
Okay.
Later on, in the afternoon, I was taking care of that child psychiatry unit, CPU.
Child psychiatry. Okay, CPU outside. Okay.
Now,
Okay,
easy
sir.
department, there's a lot of the
It's-
improvement
it's-
is there.
Yeah, it's
Vast
very
improvement.
huge now. Electrophysiology center, it is very huge. By the
A lot
time
of-
we were doing I was doing my thesis in quantitative EG only. Then PS polysomnography came. Then RTMS came. By the time I came back from Ranchi, RTMS was already there. 2004, it was already established, and we were doing thesis on that actually. So it's in many things it was first to do in India, but the thing is, since it is not autonomous and it is directly under the CGHS, a lot of bureaucratic things are there. So it's not very easy. Like NIMHANS or PGA, you can't take your own decisions many times. It's through the government machinery it has to come.
Yes.
That's what I have experienced, sir.
So in the easy card, you must have seen my signature. I have done so many easy reports at that
reports.
time.
Yeah.
I was alone giving the report.
Okay.
In the morning, I was
it was
doing
mandatory
record.
for us. For
The
us
technician
also, it
was
was
not there at
mandatory.
the time, technician.
Okay.
I was recording in morning session, and evening I was giving all the reports.
Reporting. Okay. And there was a dedicated epilepsy clinic also. So definitely a lot of patients will be having EEG recordings also.
Yes. That Haknijami was in charge of that EEG department.
Yes. He was my guide also in the MD thesis.
Very decent person. Very decent person.
Yes.
Dr. R.K. Khanna was also another assistant professor at that time. Khanna.
Okay.
Later he went to Australia.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Dayal. How are you?
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. How are you, sir?
Good evening,
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Andy. Good evening. So, Dr. Dayal, how are you? How things are going on in
doing well,
Cambridge?
sir. Yeah, actually, sir, last few, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, very hectic and busy. We had our MD exams just now finished. So practicals, 5 candidates, and we had shortage of a lot of staff here. So we had to arrange so many things and get it done. So that is just over. So we are relaxed. I was a bit concerned when I was asked to talk today. Then I thought, since this topic is something which I have some practical experience, so I thought it is okay. Like even without much preparation, I thought I will talk. Otherwise, it would be very difficult, sir.
Yeah, it's nice that I think in the South, there are very few people, apart from Dr. Lakshmi. I think you have done original work in the field of suicide.
Okay.
So in the field work, no, we really appreciate, and we are looking forward for your talk today.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, sir. Issue actually that what we have is unlike an institute, we have limited manpower and resources. So what happens is to do the work is okay, but to document it, to publish it, to contribute to evidence, that part we will be always lagging behind. That is the sorry part about what happens with us. Like we do a lot of clinical work, but it doesn't get reflected in like maybe publications or guidelines or whatever. So that thing is something that we need to improve on, sir.
Yeah, of course. But we need to have your personal experiences as well.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah, Uday Kumar garu.
Good evening, sir. Dayal garu, you are
Good
looking very handsome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, you're still in gloves, sir, clinic?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still in a clinic.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I have given a small break for this.
Okay, sir.
So, how are you, sir?
Uday Kumar, good evening, Uday Kumar.
Sir, good evening, Ramesh garu, G.V. Ramanrao garu, Dayal garu, Sarath.
Good evening.
Yeah,
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Uday Kumar garu, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Happy Independence Day to everybody.
Oh, happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day, sir. Yes.
IVL garu, Sarath.
Sir, చెప్పండి.
అదే డెలిగేట్స్ ని గేర్ అప్ చేస్తున్నారా? హౌ మెనీ డెలిగేట్స్ యూ హ్యావ్ నౌ?
475, sir.
475 ఇప్పుడు? ఓ Amazing.
475.
PG
My
is
God.
200, sir.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no, for this program. For this program.
That is for 21 members.
21, sir.
21,
21, sir. ఇంకా ఫోన్ చేస్తున్నాం. We are on calls.
Mhm.
We said at 7:30, no? So just for 5 minutes, we will wait 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. 5 minutes.
Yes.
Sir,
Prabhakar is finding difficulty. Prabhakar is finding difficulty to log in.
అవునవును ప్రభాకర్ అదే అతను పంపించాడు సార్ అతను ప్రకాశం
Sir, Ivel garu. Good evening, sir. Ivel Sharat. Good evening.
ఆడియో ద్వారా చేయొచ్చు సార్. Dayalji, Mohan Chandran is practicing still?
I think, sir, on a limited basis only now. Nowadays seeing a fewer number of patients, I think. But he's still practicing, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. See, he was my contemporary in the MAS. After post-DP, he came for MD. And we freshly joined in MD.
Oh,
We were
right.
actually,
Okay, sir.
in second innings.
Okay.
We were very close. Our areas of interest, both are interested in music and he is
Yeah.
a classical dancer, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Even nowadays, he goes regularly for concerts, attends all those programs. Yeah.
When
Very
we were in
keen.
Bangalore, we used to go very frequently.
Okay, sir.
We together. both
That he has
Okay.
attended the midterm SEM. He is very active and dynamic as usual.
Yes. He comes for all
Yeah.
meetings. Yeah.
No, he was the South Zone Secretary when I am the Secretary for the AP State Branch way back in
Okay,
90s.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, he was one person who inspired many among our batch to take up psychiatry. He used to take classes, extra sessions outside teaching hours, like as part of some activities in the college. So he used to take classes on interesting aspects of psychiatry. So that is when we actually heard about terms like hysteria, dissociation, conversion. He used to act and show so many things. He used to be very well read, so he will give a lot of examples from literature, this and that. He used to speak very well, so that was one reason. And our MBBS batch actually happens to have a maximum number of psychiatrists, it seems. Like out of 200 intake in MBBS, we are now 15 psychiatrists already in the same batch, from the same batch. 15 among one MBBS batch. So I think in Calicut, that is the maximum number I have till now I have recorded in any batch MBBS.
That case was,
Ramesh
Dr. Case.
Yes,
Dr.
yes,
Dayal,
sir.
sir.
He was there. Yes, sir. He was in charge of de-addiction and male third unit actually when we were there. Yes.
He was doing DPM at the time when I was doing senior residency. He was doing DPM.
Hmm.
Very nice guy.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Later he became director also, no?
No, sir. I
PCAP.
think before that, actually, he passed away before that. He didn't become director, sir.
He has massive cardiac.
When Diram sir was there, and yeah. Yes.
Very unfortunate thing. Very unfortunate.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Prabhakar sir, join అవ్వలేకపోతున్నారా? Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks. Vivo 118 మీదే కదా? Okay. Sir, Ramesh Babu sir, shall we start?
I will start 32 members logging.
32
Join now.
members still going on, sir.
So can we will start now.
Yeah.
Start.
No, Jesus.
The president will give some.
Yeah.
We'll talk for a few minutes. I request our President, Dr. I will also to say a few words.
Good evening all. Happy Independence Day. Today we have Suicide Prevention Committee first webinar. Thanks to Dr. Ramesh Babu Garu for his initiation and interest to organize this event, especially when we are planning programs for 10th September, the World Suicide Prevention Day. And probably 9th, September 9th, we have a seminar in AIMS, Mangalagiri, is going to be conducted by Dr. Vijay Chandra Reddy. And we are very happy to have our friend Dr. Dayal Narayan as our guest speaker, who has got enormous experience in the topic suicide. He has been running a suicide prevention clinic for more than a decade in Calicut. And with this introduction, initial words, I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Ramesh Babu, the chairperson for the Suicide Prevention Committee, to conduct the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Very good evening to all. Once again, I would like to say to all of you, Happy Independence Day. On this auspicious day, we started doing our activities of suicide prevention and the noble cause. Actually, I started this subcommittee when I was president of IPS AP State Branch in the year 2020. But because of the COVID situations and all other reasons, we could not do much to this subcommittee. Later on, with the activities of our past president, Dr. Y. Prabhakar, this subcommittee got rejuvenated. And we have done very exuberantly this suicide rally in the last year, so that even all, not only our psychiatrist colleagues and all the citizens, they remember very well regarding this awareness program regarding suicide throughout our state. He has done tremendously on a single day simultaneously throughout the state, that suicide rally. And even in spite of all these efforts, and you remember very well, just 2 years ago, our Southern President, Dr. Ramakrishnan Garu, and Tamil Nadu Society and Karnataka Society, they have done the suicide prevention cycle rally from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. So, in spite of all these efforts, still I don't know, the suicides are becoming more common, and this number is not coming down. It's going on increasing among youth, especially youth, and even among our UG students and our PG students and the consultants also. Very sad events are happening, and I don't know where we are going wrong, whether intrinsic factors are there or the extrinsic factors are unable to be changed, or whether very loopholes are there in our sincere efforts. So we have to do a lot of studies in this aspect, and we have to improve our efforts. We have to improvise our efforts to reach our message to each and every person in the society, so that every person will know his responsibility to take care of each of his colleagues, so that we should not lose even a single person by suicide. Every person is very important for the development of our society, our nation. So with this motto, I started this committee, and I am very thankful to our president, Dr. I.V. Narayan, for making me the chairman of this subcommittee. We have members, Dr. Sai Kiran from Guntur, and Dr. Hemant Madhav from Vijayanagaram, and Dr. Subhani from Nellore. We have members in this subcommittee. And so with this motto, today we want to know, we have to know and share the experiences of our speaker, the very renowned psychiatrist from Dr. Dayal Narayan Garu, because for the last so many years he is running suicide clinic. That's why we started this webinar today. This only in our beginning only. From today onwards, we will do so many. We are planning to do so many activities. For this social cause, and to see that suicide rates will come down drastically. So with this brief introduction, I will ask our colleague Dr. Uday Kumar Garu to chair this session. Dr. Uday Kumar, you know, He's very well-known person to all of us. He has done his MBBS from my college only. He's very 6 years junior to me from Karnal Medical College. Later on, he has done MD Psychiatry in IMHANS. And later on, he started his own practice in Nellore.
Adella better, sir. You can cut it off.
He's very well known for his charity activities, and he has done a lot of services to our society from state level to south zone level. And I am confident enough to say that he will become definitely president of our IPS national body also. And now he is working presently as professor of Narayan Psychiatry Department in Narayan Medical College. And he's very, very dynamic. Every day he will visit all our academic institutes. Before doing any academic activities, first he will do some charity activities, then only he will do academic service. Actually, we have to learn a lot from Dr. Uday Kumar. And with this brief introduction, I will ask Dr. Uday Kumar to take the chairperson of this session.
Sir, wonderful, sir. Am I audible, sir?
You're audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Audible, yeah. Very, very amazing, wonderful brief note from Ramesh Babu Garu, the chairman of Suicide Committee of AP chapter. A very wonderful note, sir. I also join with him to welcome all of you to this August very important topic. The topic today for the discussion is suicidal behavior in students and youth. Very, very pinching. Why should they have suicidal ideas, attempts, and then committing suicide in that age? It's really, really threatening to this whole society, to the family, and to the public even. So, being this is an auspicious day, we should not discuss about this topic. Rather, it should be on Suicide Prevention Day. But we need to discuss. We need to go on discuss till September 10th, being the day of World Suicide Prevention Awareness Day. Yes, sir. So we have a few of the points from me about the topic. The NCRB declared the rate of suicide 12 in 2022, which was 11 in 2021. Imagine every year, though we have good number of psychiatrists and then institutions, and then there are many of awareness programs being done throughout the world, the suicide rate definitely increasing, which is alarming all of us, where we need to stand up to prevent these suicides. This is our duty, I believe. So our speaker today may tell us suicide awareness programs, how exactly we be doing suicide hotlines, the importance of suicide hotlines, and then helplines, and then suicidal warning signs, and then how do we exactly prevent the strategies of suicide. At the end of the day, I would say that sword, katti, never kills the person, but behind that, the idea, the unclear doubt, which is the killer to make the person to kill himself. So it is not the sword which kills, the idea behind which kills the person. So to discuss all these topic-related issues, we have very renowned speaker today. Somehow, though he is very busy, we have brought, thanks to Ramesh Babu Garu, IVL Garu, to bring him down to the stage today. So Dayal Narayan is Associate Professor of Psychiatry in Kozhikodi Government Medical College, done MBBS from the same institution, MD from the prestigious institution from Ranchi Central Institution, and for the last 10 years, he's been serving as in charge of Suicide Prevention Clinic. So that's where he is the apt person to make him sit on this podium today to speak on this topic. He was served as RMO and editor, and currently working as a co-chair of CME co-chair of South Zone subcommittee, and playing very big role along with Dr. M.S. Reddy Garu. He is the speaker, he is the researcher, he is the sportsman, and is quizzer too. So I welcome Dr. Dayal Narayan Garu. I have a big hope that he would give us very beautiful deliberation today about this topic, to enlighten, to go about at least one each psychiatrist, if they think that if they can prevent one suicide, that becomes 7,000 suicides can be prevented in India. Thanks the speaker for being with us today. I welcome Dr. Dayal Narayan Garu to come on to the podium to speak on this indexed topic which is being given to you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir, for a very kind words of introduction. That was too big for me, actually. Basically, I am indeed privileged to be with this August group on this auspicious day. And I consider it as an honor to be invited to speak on a topic which is close to my heart on an important day. And I understand that it is actually the beginning of the activities of the Suicide Prevention Subcommittee of Andhra Pradesh State Branch of IPS. And I wish all the best for the activities of this particular subcommittee, and also for the Andhra Pradesh State Branch for the upcoming days. And it is indeed a pleasant experience for me to be in this group, where our beloved President of South Zone, Dr. Uday Kumar, is chairing the session, and I'm actually blessed to be in this session. And I also see senior members, Dr. IVL sir, Dr. Ramana Rao sir, Dr. Ramesh Babu sir, everyone in this audience. And I'm sure that with this enthusiasm and this energy that we have in this group, it's always possible to find out or explore newer options in helping people with suicidality, reducing the risk of suicide, and that too in the young age group, which is the topic for today's discussion. And I promise that I would stick to practical experience that I have gathered over the last few years of my work in this institution as a person who has been in charge of the suicide prevention clinic. I don't have any statistics or research evidence to actually discuss here, because I don't think that this is the ideal forum for any discussions in that regard. Rather, I would focus on what we really see in the real life situation in the clinical practice, and what we have been trying to do here. Actually, although I take that position of being in charge of the clinic, it's not a single person, one-man show. So actually, it's a teamwork, and we need to have a good team to continue any activity for a reasonable period of time. And I take this opportunity to thank all the members of the team, including all the faculty and staff members of the department, and other non-doctor staff members also, who have been playing an important role in conducting this particular activity here. And without spending much time, I think I will move on to the presentation part, because I am sure that at the end of it, which I think I will limit myself to maybe 25-30 minutes maximum, and I think we will have enough time for discussions, questions, or comments from the audience also. So I think I will go on to the slide part. Can I share my slide?
Sir, 1 minute, sir. You are co-host now, so you can share, sir.
Yeah, I will share.
Right.
I think, is it
visible, sir?
Now?
Yes,
okay.
Sir. Visible, sir.
Full screen. It's full screen now.
No, sir. It's not full screen.
It's not full screen.
Now it's okay.
Yes, sir. It's full screen.
Yes. Thank you. So at the outset, apart from getting this chance to talk in this particular session, I consider this as an honor to be here on Independence Day, and I wish every participants of this program a very happy Independence Day from my heart. So let me go to the topic per se. So the topic I've chosen is suicide prevention in students and youth, both identification and intervention. And as I discussed initially, I will try to stick to the practical aspects and the experience sharing aspect before going on to certain specific points which I think is important in this particular age group, and then we will go on to discussion at the end. So in the outline, I have an introductory aspect, a few slides, and then I would give a glimpses of the experience that we have had here, the challenges that we have been facing, and then I would also suggest a few points towards future, which I think we may be able to take up. So the suicide prevention clinic in this particular medical college where I have been working, it has been happening even before I took up the charge. So I joined this institution in 2006 as a faculty. I think within 2-3 years, I happened to get the chance because the previous faculty who was running the clinic got transferred to another institution. And I was a newcomer, actually, both in the department and also in the suicide prevention area. So I thought it would be a challenging experience. It really was. It was a learning experience for me because I didn't have any previous exposure or training in particular regarding the suicide prevention aspects. And one thing that I would say stands out with regard to the suicide prevention activities is that it demands a lot of time and extreme level of patience from a clinician to be able to actually handle the demands of the suicide prevention activities, especially in a clinic setting. So this is what I have realized in a nutshell. This is what I would say. This is what I have realized over time, that it demands a lot of time, especially in the initial stages of your career when you are new to the specialty, new to the subject, new to the area. Definitely it takes a lot of time for you to actually understand, interact, and formulate a management plan for any patient who attends with a suicidality in the clinical setting. So this was a learning process for me. So regarding the clinic, I would also mention about the setting, the workflow, the services provided, and the beneficiaries that we have here. Actually, although we have named it as a suicide prevention clinic, to begin with, it was just another room in the outpatient department where we would, the person who's concerned faculty member would be sitting and seeing the patient. So that room will be exclusively for patients who are registered to the suicide prevention clinic. It was not a separate area, separate building or something. It was just part of the psychiatry outpatient department itself, where we had a dedicated room and one designated psychiatrist who will be in that room on all Thursdays. So Thursdays used to be our day for the suicide prevention clinic in the week. Apart from the psychiatrist, we also required the services of a psychiatric social worker and a clinical psychologist, but unfortunately these were not available most of the time in the initial part, and at least once in a while in between also it becomes unavailable. And the intake of patients into the suicide prevention clinic used to happen by referral mostly. So this referral happens from the inpatient departments of the hospital. We have surgical departments, medical departments, where patients get admitted and they have exhibited or manifested some suicidal behavior. So the primary problem for the treatment might have been something else also, but still they have a suicidal act or an attempt which has come into clinical attention, and all such patients are mandatorily referred to either the psychiatry OPD or suicide prevention clinic as according to the days in which they are referred. For example, if they are referred on that particular day on Thursday, they will come first to the suicide prevention clinic itself directly. If referred on another day for the first time, they will be attending the psychiatry OPD, and the subsequent follow-up will be, or a subsequent visit will be in the streamline to the Thursday's OPD. And sometimes from the emergency department also patients are referred even before they are admitted, like the previous day, previous evening, previous night, they attended the emergency department, kept under observation, may be referred to psychiatry OPD when they come to the department. And sometimes there is a direct visit to the outpatient department also. The patient comes, we evaluate them, and we find out that there is suicidality, or a patient attends the psychiatry OPD upon referral from peripheral hospital where they have identified that the patient has suicidal behavior or suicidal thoughts or gestures. And on the same day, we have to see both new registrations and review patients, follow-up patients. So the new registration demands more time, more dedicated attempts to evaluate and come to a conclusion. Whereas review patients, usually we might have made a brief assessment initially at least, and we will have some clinical details to work with. And for inpatients who are referred but who are very sick or physically weak or not ambulant, who cannot be brought to the outpatient department, we do bedside visits after the working hours of the suicide prevention clinic, which usually is from 9 o'clock in the morning till 1 p.m. So after 1, we go to the concerned wards bedside, we do bedside visits along with the junior resident or an intern, and we assess the patient bedside or maybe in the ICU. So this is how the basic structure of the clinic used to be. Initially, we didn't have a psychiatric social worker or a clinical psychologist on a regular basis. Over the last few years, we have been having, because the posts remained vacant for so many years despite repeated requests. But nowadays, we are having regular people. But again, it so happens that we have only one clinical psychologist in the whole department and 2 psychiatric social workers in the department. So if that particular person is on leave, again, that special clinic will not have the services of that person. So it becomes very difficult at once in a while. And once a person is registered, they are allotted a particular number of the suicide prevention clinic. They have a special registration number apart from their outpatient number. So this helps in identification, keeping statistics, keeping the records, so that we can have an approximate assessment of how many patients are registered every day, every week, every month, every year, that kind of. And that will contain basic demographic details with contact information and a clinical diagnosis which has been arrived at the initial evaluation. But it is not in any way, I mean, very systematic and foolproof, because the first evaluation, usually, most of the time, we may not be able to come to a very confident diagnosis in at least a good number of patients. So that would be a provisional diagnosis at the best. And the clinician has to evaluate the patient, the new patients and the follow-up patients, they keep coming, not in a particular order. It's the first come first serve basis. So sometimes we may find it very difficult when there are 5 or 6 new patients waiting and a lot of follow-up patients. What we do is usually we attend the follow-up patients in good numbers in between, because most of them have to travel back to their own places, whereas the inpatients, they are still in the hospital, so they can go back to the ward only. So, and sometimes we give them some slots also, like some of them we tell them that you don't need to wait here till 12, you can go back to the ward and come by 12 again. If they're comfortable doing that, we give them that option also. And this clinical evaluation at the very first registration is a very difficult task, because what happens is, when a patient is admitted to the medical specialties or a surgical specialties, and when there is an attached evidence of suicidal act or suicidal behavior, for most of these patients, referral to the psychiatry OPD or referral to the suicide prevention clinic is some kind of, they perceive it as some kind of a punishment or additional stress, because that is how it is worded many a times by the other specialists or other doctors from the other side of the hospital. Like, you will be discharged once the person sitting in that OPD approves of that, or they say that you are safe, or they say that it is okay to discharge you. So it is most of the time, it is for the permission to get discharged from the hospital that the patient is forced to come to the psychiatry OPD or suicide prevention clinic, and rather not for helping them out in their dealing with the problems that led to the suicidal act. So this has been happening for a long time, and with a lot of effort, communication, liaison efforts, we could actually make it slightly different. We could convince other consultants and other doctors in other specialties that this should never happen, because already there is a stigma attached to psychiatric treatment, suicide as such, suicidal acts as such, and now you are adding stigma to that by forcing the person without talking to them, convincing them. You are simply sending them, saying that you go there, get their approval, and then we will discharge. Till then you will be here. So This has been changing over a few years now. And treatment planning, once the evaluation is done, we need to decide the setting of treatment, what further strategy we will adopt, whether the patient will continue to be an inpatient in the hospital, whether the person who has come as an outpatient will need admission and inpatient care, or whether the person who is admitted can be discharged and treated as an outpatient. So this is a very crucial step, and the person sitting there needs to actually be very confident in taking decisions in some of these cases, because there are many other factors other than suicidality involved in deciding the duration of inpatient care, deciding the degree of supervision and surveillance available. Many a times what happens is in medical wards, which are already overburdened with patients, they are awaiting another admission day. They need to empty a lot of beds for the other serious cases who are likely to get admitted. They keep asking us, can we send them, or can you take over to your side? So this kind of questions. And patient personally may not be willing for a psychiatric inpatient transfer. They may say that I will lie down in the medical ward. I cannot come to psychiatry because it is very stigmatizing, because I don't have a psychiatric disorder, or I think it is a discrimination. So many patients don't directly accept, even if we actually request them or approve, we advise them to get transferred to our ward so that we get adequate time to evaluate and treat them. It is difficult. So many times it is admission, continued admission in a medical or surgical ward with active support from the psychiatry side. We go and treat them bedside, or we actually review them again in our OPD and modify the treatment plan. So that is what happens. And at least a proportion of patients, I would say minority of them, they get transferred to psychiatric inpatient care, especially when there is a serious risk of repeated acts are there, or we have serious doubts regarding supervision and support available at home once they're discharged. And we know that there is a treatable psychiatric disorder associated with suicide. All these patients are usually, we advise them and we get them transferred to psychiatry as an inpatient. And outpatients who come with significant suicidality, we admit them with their consent, with their approval. And subsequently, when they are the review cases that we see in the suicide prevention clinic, if they don't have active suicidality, we give them regular follow-ups spaced at 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, like that. When they have somewhat significant risk but not very high risk, we ask them to attend psychiatry OPD with more frequent reviews, maybe weekly follow-ups, like that. And then we try. The problem that we face over there is when we send a patient for weekly follow-up, other than the suicide prevention clinic, sometimes in emergency they land up in other OP days in psychiatry itself. There sometimes, and naturally the consultant who sits in the suicide prevention clinic will not be there in the regular OPD on that particular day. So usually the documentation in the outpatient records of the patient is very important. Most of the important things needs to be documented. The treatment plan has to be chalked out and documented properly in that particular outpatient record. Then only the person who is seeing the patient on an emergency basis on another day will be able to comprehend and continue with the same plan. So that kind of continuity has to be ensured by proper documentation. And involving psychosocial support, as I told you initially, that is where the other team members play an important role. But there again, we have limited resources available. Sometimes it may warrant a field visit the living situation of the patient, and to go make a home visit, or you have to meet certain people in the neighborhood. You have to talk to the teacher of a student regarding certain issues at school or the college. So those things, we find it very difficult without adequate manpower. It becomes very difficult to handle such requirements. But many a times we actually manage with telephone calls, written letters, replies received from those people. Those things are sometimes the available substitutes for direct one-to-one field visits. And along with this, we definitely get a lot of medical legal issues managed, because the moment a patient is referred with suicidal attempt, previously it used to be every case used to be a medical legal case, and then there used to be some inquiry from the police. Nowadays it has come down. Nowadays only in cases where complaints are there, like for example, a girl attempts suicide, the girl's family alleges some harassment in the husband's house, or there is an attempted suicide by a student, parents allege harassment by teachers, or things like that. When there is a formal police complaint and a registered legal issue, definitely the inquiry will come over to the person in the suicide prevention clinic. You will be called as a witness in a court of law. You will be asked to give a statement, provide a report, provide a certificate. Sometimes it has also happened that a student or who has demonstrated suicidality as a part of his symptoms. Subsequently, when he or she wants to join back the course or wants entry back into the hostel, the authorities there will ask them to come with a fitness certificate. Sometimes they ask you bring a letter from the treating doctor, treating psychiatrist, that you can be accommodated in a hostel, you don't have a risk of suicide, you can resume your studies here. So they don't want to take the risk, so they pass on the risk, the responsibility to the treating doctor, and it becomes very difficult for a person to comment on complex issues like risk of repeated suicidality just by doing a clinical evaluation. So many a times it becomes difficult practically, but definitely it comes as a question. So from the practical experience that I've had over so many years, what I've seen is majority of patients who to comprise the list of people attending suicide prevention clinic as new patients, new registrations. We see a lot of young adult females with acute stress attempting suicide. The stress could be of personal nature, professional nature, academic, interpersonal, so many things. We see a lot of men, young adults and middle-aged men with alcohol-related issues, with underlying psychiatric disorder, but definitely with alcohol-related problems also, attempting self-harm, attempting suicide while they are under intoxication. We see a lot of patients with pre-existing psychiatric disorder on treatment, not on treatment, attempting suicide as at one stage in their lifetime during the clinical course. So I would say this is the major three components that we see as patients. There are many other variants, variety, but they are less in number compared to these three groups. And coming to the focus area of today's talk, that is focus on students and youth. So when we talk about students and youth, from my experience in the suicide prevention clinic here, there is a huge limitation because ours is a tertiary care referral center, a teaching hospital. So we cannot expect all patients in the community with suicidality, suicidal behavior to attend this particular clinic. Just like when in initial part in the comments by the chairperson Udayakumar sir was telling about the NCRB statistics and all, the limitation there is whatever has been reported as attempted suicide or committed suicide, completed suicide will come into the statistics. Whatever is not reported, not recognized, will not come in the statistics. Again, the same referral bias here. We are seeing patients in a tertiary care referral center. Again, only those which are reported as self-harm or suspected as self-harm. There are many other patients who attempt, but they go unnoticed, unreported. So among this, again coming to the young age group, students and youth, we do see a lot of students, lot of young individuals belonging to our own campus. Being a medical college with more than 66 years of history, having a nursing college, dental college, pharmacy college, and many other paramedical courses running in the same campus, and with undergraduate 250 seats, postgraduates in many specialties, super specializations. We have around, I think, more than 3,000 students at a time in the campus. So definitely we will get to see a lot of students belonging to these different streams being referred to us or attending to our clinics. And we do see students from outside also, ranging from the age of 10, the school going students, to even PhD scholars and professional students outside medical campus. So then again, we need to know what is the pattern. Here, what I have noticed is among the very young group, like those who are below 12 or maybe around 10 or below, these are usually impulsive acts following conflicts with parents and teachers, usually, or in the peer group. And many of them may have certain temperamental characteristics which are very unique, which predispose them to this kind of impulsive acts. And another group in the very young age group is those with primary psychiatric diagnosis attempting self-harm during that the presentation of the disorder. So these are two broad groups I could identify in the very young age group. Whereas in the adolescent to young adults, again, impulsive acts are very common, but this belong to conflicts of in personal relationships usually, or in the context of substance abuse, and also having psychiatric diagnosis in themselves, because as we know, that is the age group where we tend to see the first manifestation or the onset in life of psychiatric disorders in most of these people. So that is the other pattern. So among youth and the children, this is what I could identify, and I don't have numbers to support this patterns, because I haven't done a statistical analysis of those figures available, but this is what my experience says. Then coming to the specific issues in the youth and the students, what we see is definitely there is a predisposition. That is, it is not something that comes de novo out of the blue. Definitely there are predispositions, and we do come across those patterns. Only issue is it's very difficult to identify these patterns or predispositions in a single setting. Usually we don't get any of these details in the very first sitting. What we do in that first sitting is we establish a therapeutic relationship. We try to talk to the person, try to listen to the person, whether to see whether the person is ready to open up at all. Many times they don't speak even during the first session. We end up talking to the caregiver or the relative who has come along with the person, and we just keep waiting for the person to utter a few words. They choose not to speak. We say it's okay. We know that you may not want to speak right now. We respect your choice. We would again try to talk to you, listen to you, maybe 2 days later. You can come back to us. We can talk to us. You can give us something in writing. You can put it down in paper. We sometimes it may be difficult for you to vocalize these things. Maybe there are difficult things to speak. You can write down these things. You can talk to someone else and they can convey these things. We give all these options. We don't compel them, force to them. So all these predispositions, like some of them are very anxious, some of them are emotionally very sensitive, some are emotionally very unstable, and they tend to have off and on substance use. They definitely will have some family history, either in the form of psychiatric disorders or in the form of suicidality, suicidal thoughts, acts, or attempts. So this is a very common scenario that we see. Then another important thing that we have noticed as a pattern is a poor adaptation to the demands. So this could be coping with the demands in academic performance, because they are placed in a professional course, they are away from the family, they are adapting with a lot of strange peer group in a hostel, in a very difficult setting. They have problems in establishing friendships, maintaining friendships and relationships. Many of them have problems in managing time, and so many people have problems in dealing with failures and setbacks. And this age group, when we deal with and most of them come up in connection with an examination, in connection with the results of an examination, things like that. So we tend to see a lot of entry in the registers during these periods. When a major examination is happening for a big batch, we see a lot of people coming to us. Initially, they may report to us that they have sleep problems, they have some anxiety, stress. You talk to them, you evaluate them, and they come out with history of having attempted self-harm, using some medications, using some other means. And apart from these two intrinsic factors like predisposition and adaptation problems, we definitely see extrinsic issues also, like hostile environmental factors. it could be in the peer group, it could be among the faculty or in the department, it could be in the teaching environment. Definitely it is there. I won't say that everything is internal, but even this hostile environmental factors, those who break down are those with predispositions or poor adaptation. Others somehow overcome, somehow cope with these demands and they get through. But those who have this predisposition, they stumble, they have a breakdown, and they tend to have these problems manifest. So this is actually very specific that I tend to see, because when we go to the people in the higher age group, like adults, elderly people, we see that this emotional instability, the anxiousness or sensitivity, these things are less common, and they are more prone to have either primary psychiatric diagnosis like depression or OCD, anxiety adjustment disorder, or they have problems with the external extrinsic environmental factors. So this is something I think is very important that we know. So the challenges, apart from the clinical challenges which I have alluded to initially in assessing these people, coming to conclusions and planning a management, we have a lot of extrinsic challenges also, because there is a significant lack of awareness regarding the nature of the problem in the society, in the community, and very much so among our own colleagues in other departments, other specialities, because people tend to look at suicidal behavior as a single entity, as a uniform homogeneous thing. It's not. So one who is suicidal, then for if you tend to understand that the person had depression and then he became suicidal, every person who is suicidal has to be depressed. That kind of a generalization. So lack of awareness again, as suicidality is a sign of mental weakness, lack of skills to cope with issues, so they are inferior somehow to other people. So that kind of, and then there is a lack of an accessible mechanism for help seeking in many places. Like you talk to someone, maybe your mentor, your teacher, or your relative, then there is always a generic advice available to people. Everyone who comes with suicidality, people tend to reassure them and tell them that no, it is not good to commit suicide. See, don't think about it. That is a crime. That is not good. So you are not supposed to do this. You are having all these things with you. You have been selected for a course. You got an admission to this. Your parents have brought up like this. And how can you think about suicide? This kind of questions are actually what they get in return, not listening to what they actually feel like. What is it that is pushing them to this? Instead, they are flooded with a lot of advice, or sometimes it is trivialized. They are told that, see, this is what we also experienced when we were students. This is what happens to us all the day. So that it is not unique to you. So don't worry about it. That will go away. This kind of generic advice is what is available, not actually a proper advice to seek help from an expert, get evaluated by an expert, and see whether you really need help or not. And definitely stigma and confidentiality issues. People are worried and concerned about safety. That is true. So whenever a faculty member comes across a student who happens to harbor suicidal thoughts, who has expressed suicidal ideas, then that faculty panics. Then the person becomes very anxious, thinks that now if something happens to this boy or girl, then I will be responsible. So I have to report it to someone. That reporting takes place as if this boy or girl has done some crime. See, there is a person, such and such person in this such and such batch who is highly suicidal. We need to be very careful about that person. Instead of providing an opportunity to talk to someone so that someone can listen to this person and understand what is happening, there is suddenly an official level warning, and things take place, and people start talking about it, discussing about it, flouting all confidentiality norms, all privacies. So that is one other challenge that we get. And again, once a person expresses or manifests some suicidal behavior, there is very high chances that they will face discrimination in a hostel discrimination in a batch, discrimination in an institution. People start saying that, see, I'm very worried about that person. I don't know if I say something and that person attempts suicide again, then I will be held responsible. So that kind of comments, as if they are waiting for someone to pass some comment and then they will start acting in a suicidal way. So this is a very, very important challenge that we face. This is one thing that prevents people from seeking help also. I will give two clinical scenarios which recently has happened in my practice. There are so many interesting experiences that I have had, but these are two recent experiences. First year MBBS student who has been a topper in her school all through till 12th and has secured a very high rank in the entrance examination. She has, apart from the academics, she has been at all-rounder in all extracurriculars, in sports, in arts, in all those things, in writing, music, dance, drama, everything. And after joining the institution, within a few months, starts becoming very anxious, exhibiting a lot of crying spells. She suddenly starts crying while in the class and runs out of the theory class. A class of 250 students, she just runs out of the class, and the faculty who is taking the class becomes very upset. It's a lecture class for 250 students, and sometimes it's a junior level faculty who is taking the lecture class in anatomy, physiology, or biochemistry, and that person becomes upset. What to do now? This girl has run out of the class. Everyone in the class is stunned and surprised. And whether I have to run after this child or I have to continue taking class, I have to call someone for help. And they start making panic calls to the their friends in the psychiatry department, because that is all that they can do. And on evaluation, what we see is that this girl is expressing fears and vague fears. There, she doesn't specify what kind of fears, and she says that I feel like crying frequently, and frequent suicidal gestures. Like sometimes she takes certain sharp objects and keeps it in her hand and keeps looking at it, and much to the distress of her roommates in the hostel. 3-4 other girls are there. They see that this girl is sitting with a blade in her hand or a knife in her hand, looking at her hand, and then sometimes attempting to do something. Once it saw happen that during an internal assessment examination, this girl suddenly stood up from her seat. This seat happened to be near a window which didn't have a grill, and this examination hall is actually on the top floor, 3rd floor of the hospital. Suddenly the examiner, who is aware of this girl's problems, she became frightened, because she thought that this girl has stood up to jump out of the window and commit suicide. And suddenly she ran to that girl. By that time, the girl sat down and started writing down something in the paper. And the faculty was frightened to see that she has written something like death, suicide, many things like that. And she has written so many other things. And immediately there was a call made, and we had to kind of see that girl on an emergency basis. So again, this leads to reporting to the authorities also, because definitely the faculty, when they are frightened, they will report it to the academic in charge. It goes to the vice principal's office. He or she calls us and asks what is happening to this girl. What we did was like, we contacted the parents. We asked her mother to be here. We talked to them. We decided that definitely she will need some inpatient observation and evaluation, because it was very difficult for the girl to stay in the hostel and remain comfortable. The mother was not at all confident to manage her on her own in a room outside. So we thought we will help them by getting her admitted. Mother stayed with the girl, evaluated her. It revealed that she had depression, but in the background, she had significant emotionally unstable personality traits and a lot of interpersonal conflicts. And she actually had some anancastic traits also. She wanted to be perfect in whatever she does, and she wanted to be the topper in whatever she does. And she realized that after joining the class, she realized that there are many other people who are much better than her in many things that she does well. So a significant competition was there. But with proper psychosocial support, with pharmacotherapy, she has made significant improvement. But again, she had problems. Whenever an exam comes up in between, she again has a breakdown. Then again, we need to attend. But over the last 2-3 months, she has significantly improved, and she comes to us regularly for follow-up. now in the last exam that she has undergone, she has topped her class also. That is again another thing that happened. So this is one scenario where we will be required to intervene very frequently. We cannot say that I will see her only in the OPD. We cannot say that I will not attend phone calls after 9 p.m. We cannot say that today I'm on leave, so you better talk to someone. So all these things we need to sometimes take up on a personal basis, because there should be a continuity of care. You will be the person who is knowing the background, the clinical details. Sometimes you will be needed at odd times of the day, but fortunately she has recovered well. Another scenario where a JR1 in a medical specialty, after completing her MBBS in a very good way, she has secured very high marks, and again she has secured a very good rank in her NEET PG entrance. Hectic clinical duties. I'm not specifying the department. And hectic in the sense that they will be having 36-hour duties, followed by 2-hour break, and again another 24-hour duty, again followed by maybe 3-4 hours break, and then 24-hour ICU duty. So these things are actually very demanding, especially now what is happening is we have a new program called district rural postings for PGs in the second year. So 1/3 of the postgraduates, junior residents from a particular specialty goes to the periphery. So there is a scarcity of manpower. Those who used to man these duties, there is a significant reduction in numbers, and there is an overload on the residents who are posted. Without rest, without recovery, they are repeatedly engaging in high risk, high stressful, demanding situations. And in the background, she has history of panic attacks. It was infrequent in the past. It used to happen whenever she had important exams, and she was on treatment on and off in the past. She has again an encastic traits. Recently, she had suffered a setback in a personal relationship, and in this context, she is getting posted as JR1 in a very hectic medical specialty and repeatedly having problems. Again, significant crying spells. She suddenly breaks down, and then she is unable to do any work further. Then someone needs to be called to fill her place in that duty. But with treatment, she has fully recovered from her panic symptoms, crying spells. This was directly mostly with pharmacotherapy and some supportive intervention. She has fully recovered, but she is at risk of repeated recurrences, provided the working environment in the department doesn't change, provided the work pattern doesn't change significantly. So we had to actually have a talk with the faculty in charge of that department regarding the JR schedule, duty schedules and other things. They took it up very positively. Actually, they were not much aware of this particular situation. They were thinking that everything was okay. They were not actively involved in the monitoring of the duty hours and other things. Once they knew that it is happening, they took active measures, and some redistribution of duties were given, and that has resulted in improvement. And we could establish emergency contacts for contacts for emergency. Like in our department, at least 3-4 faculty members are there whose numbers are available to any specialities, any faculty in other departments to contact in case of an emergency, to establish regular channels of communication. So they can actually contact us regarding specific issues or general issues. And we keep interactive sessions. Like there are academic programs in other specialities where sometimes general topics are discussed. So we make it a point that we go to those specialities and present clinical material like this, talks like this, interact with faculty and residents there, and tell them regarding what we can do in helping them. And in fact, a very interesting observation is that after we started doing this, apart from the students who needed help with regard to their stress management and suicidality, we started getting faculty members coming up to us with their own problems, opening up with their problems, work atmosphere or personal domain. And we now have a very large number of people who are sensitized to these issues, emotional needs and issues of students, because they know from their personal experience, they know how it is like to go through such a problem. So they are more sensitive and they are willing to take up the issues of students in their concerned departments. So we have contact persons or so-called brand ambassadors for psychiatry or suicide prevention in different specialities also. So we can talk to them. They will take initiative in handling issues in their own departments and their own levels. So this has become a welcome change. So to summarize from our experience in running this process over many years, we have seen that it's a very common problem. In a tertiary referral center like ours, we have annual new registrations for the clinic alone to the tune of 1,000. At least 1,000 new patients attend our specialty with a suicidal behavior as a primary complaint in a year. And then, although some of them recover and go away from follow-up, we have a huge number as follow-up patients also. So this is a new patient registration, 1,000. And a good percentage of these, at least 30 to 40%, I would say, are youth. And many of them are students also. And serious self-harm attempts in the youth poses major challenges to the treating psychiatrist, because many times they come alone. They don't want to bring any close relatives or friends into the picture. So the information is very scarce. There are issues of confidentiality. They have problems with substance use or relationships which they usually do not open up very frequently unless very confident that you are capable of helping them and you are unlikely to breach the confidentiality. Then only they open up. And it's never an isolated phenomenon. It doesn't happen like something hanging in air. It's usually connected to something which is familial, something which is related to personality, something which is related to the biological vulnerabilities in individual. So this is what we have learned from evaluating and talking and interacting with this group. On a personal level, I would say this is what I follow. We cannot be too much paternalistic. Even though we are dealing with young individuals, students, children, we cannot dictate terms when we deal with them. We need to actually consider them as individuals with their autonomy, their freedom, and their decision-making capacities. And as far as possible, keep our interventions flexible to be acceptable. And we cannot provide quick fix solutions or ready-made advice to all these people. That is one trend which we need to resist, because that is not going to be appreciated or accepted by them. They are very intelligent, they are very smart. So the moment you start preaching, the moment you start giving general advice, they switch off their listening mode and they go to some other things. So, and they start thinking that this person is not going to understand my problems. This person again starts talking the same way as my parents, my teachers, or my colleagues. Again, sometimes we see that there are significant problems in the person's behavior and attitude with regard to maybe substance use, with regard to certain other maladaptive behaviors. But never expect drastic changes in these things, because our primary aim right now when we are dealing with a suicidal problem is preventing a repetition of a suicidal act and preventing loss of a life. Major changes in the lifestyle, attitude, things can take time. We do get time once we have a therapeutic relationship. They come back to us, we can attempt. But this is not the time to insist on, see, you should have a very strict activity schedule. You should wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. You should do 1 hour physical activity. These are not things to be discussed in a suicide prevention clinic, at least in the initial sessions. So don't expect such drastic changes in them, or even complete cessation of substance use. That also cannot be expected at the very beginning. Although that may be ideal or that may be appreciable, that may not happen in the beginning. So we may need to bear with that. And too much of generalization, too much of reduction, like suicide means depression, suicide means personality, suicide means this, that should not happen. Every individual has their unique set of factors which drive them to suicidality. So take the individual into confidence. You need to buy time and limit harm. Sometimes we see that the patient is highly suicidal, they need inpatient care, but he is not willing, or the family members do not think that it is important. Then there is no point in threatening them, scaring them, frightening them with something like, see, I am not responsible if something happens to them, you alone will be responsible. That is not needed. You should understand that they are new to this area, they don't know what is suicide and why is it happening. So they may sometimes think. We give them some time. Ask them to come back after 1 day, 2 days. Okay, it's okay. You can go back home, come back to us. But keep make them aware that you are always available round the clock. The casualty services are available round the clock. OPDs are available 6 days a week. Emergencies are available even on holidays. Any time of the day, any day of the week, they can come back to us if there is a risk of self-harm. Don't wait for the day for suicide prevention clinic. Don't wait for the concerned OPD day. Don't wait for a working day. Come immediately, visit us, talk to us, and we will be there to help. And always gather information, mobilize support whenever possible. Try to involve other people if the patient is consenting. Some changes in the environment will help. Sometimes a student who is finding it very difficult to cope with academic stress or exam stress, sometimes he or she may need some leave. The student may be very apprehensive to go and talk to the HOD and ask for leave, but you can suggest, you can actually be a bridge in the communication. You can suggest that such and such a person whom I have seen seems to be in real distress. They need maybe 1 week time to partially recover from this problem. So I would suggest that he may be permitted to take some leave, avail some leave. That is always, that's helpful. So that actually helps the therapeutic relation to build also. And we need to have individualized plans. Although the general directions, general points will help, for a given individual, the plan has to be tailor-made. That is something which is very crucial when we deal with suicidality. So we need to also focus on optimal clinical diagnosis whenever possible. If there is a clinical diagnosis, you make it, then start an effective treatment for the diagnosis. If there is no clear diagnosis, you make a provisional diagnosis if possible, then make a plan accordingly, and then proceed for re-evaluation and serial evaluation. Always make sure that the initial contact, initial consultation has been comfortable for the person. At least it was not stress inducing for the person to visit you and talk to you in a clinic, so that you can ensure follow up. You are there to help, and the person appreciate that possibility. Other topics like which Udayakumar sir was mentioning about helplines, hotlines, and all. I'm not an expert in running any of this. I'm not an expert in commenting on the utility of these things. But what I have seen is that many a times when you establish a helpline or a hotline, what happens is it is not manned by an expert in the subject. It is usually manned by a partly trained person who may not be the ideal person to deal with complex clinical situations. It may be possible to give general advices like, see, there is a help available, there is a consultant available in this hospital, you can contact him, visit him, those things. But if a person asks about a very specific clinical query or a very complex issue, it may be difficult. It may be beyond the expertise of the person attending the helpline. Maybe if they can alert a caregiver, an expert, and connect the patient to the caregiver, that would be better. Otherwise, maybe it is true that when a person suddenly feels suicidal at the odd time of a day, maybe at midnight, 12 o'clock, suddenly he can contact a number. Yeah, definitely you will not be able to cater to the needs of the person at that time as a consulting psychiatrist, but a helpline maybe help us to buy some time and provide an opportunity for evaluation and treatment. And another thing is the focus on media portrayal of suicide. Like that is something that as specialists we can actually try to address. Like the way it is reported in the media, the way it is portrayed in the media, sometimes it is sensationalized, sometimes it is made fun of, sometimes it is depicted in a very horrifying way. So these things need to change. So we need to take initiative, and IPS Kerala has been actually doing this on a regular basis, having sessions with the media persons on a regular basis and telling them the proper methods of doing it, and pointing out examples where it was not properly done, like suggesting changes. And they have been very proactive. They have taken up it in a very positive way. And another important issue is caring for survivors of suicide. We do see patients who are suicidal, who are actually survivors of another suicide in their family or in their relationships, in their peer group. So this again is a very important point. many a times we focus on people who have attempted suicide. We fail to recognize the importance of survivors. So that again is another point I think we can always keep in mind. So to summarize, I would say we need to have some emphasis on disseminating scientific information regarding what is suicidality, what drives them people to suicidality, and what we can do both as a layperson and as a professional, both as psychiatrists and non-psychiatrist professional, our bit in preventing suicide. And we can involve children, students, and youth in our awareness program so that they are sensitized to this topic, because they are actually an age group where we can actually involve them in activities in preventing suicide in peer groups. We can have mentor system in colleges and academic institutions where teachers or faculty who are experienced, who are emotionally capable of handling with the situations as mentors to batch of students. We can have a platform for emergency response. In our institution, we have established a PTA helpline, Parent Teacher Association helpline, where parents, teachers, other students can actually get in touch with us, not only for their own problems, but for problems that they detect in their colleagues, their peer group. So that can be an indirect way of detecting, identifying problems. We can ensure measures for adequate privacy and confidentiality and respecting the individual's autonomy and freedom. And there should be a prompt and effective treatment of pathologies and tailor-made plans whenever possible for dealing with these problems. So this is in brief, I thought I would share in today's session. I hope I haven't taken too much time, and at least part of what I have spoken today was of some practical utility to all the attendees. Thank you very much once again for this wonderful opportunity, and I am open to questions, comments, criticisms, whatever from the audience. Thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful, sir. One of the best amazing lectures with very, very clear and lucid, informative lecture, rather deliberation about the topic, sir. Thank you, Dr. Dayal Garu, putting across to us in good understanding about the topic. Your slide about some factors, specific issues in students, factors like predisposition, adaptation, extrinsic factors, really amazing, sir. To have probably the question also, to have a psychology class, rather psychiatry or mental health issues oriented classes in schools or colleges, and then have a psychologist, psychiatrist at least once in a week, may be a solving factor to tackle whole school collegial mental health issues. That's what we've been asking the governments to have a topic, a chapter on psychology, what is good and bad, and even behavior, the limits of love and relationships, everything will be covered, and then coping skills may be explained. At that, my question is to have some chapters on psychology, and having a psychiatrist, a psychologist, at least once in a week to all colleges, schools, is beneficial or not. That is one. And then explained through clinical scenarios, it's very beautiful. MBBS student with that kind of academic performance, anybody, it says that anybody can get depression, and then at any stage, your wisdom, your academic performance never helps you to come out from the depression. So you require a treatment. So diagnosable problem, you have a treatment is possible, that is to be taken. Yes, there are many challenges you have explained. I think I'm really felt very happy about you being spoken about the abstract level of things into it, sir. Thank you once again on behalf of IPS AP State Branch. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank
You can answer my question also.
Yes, sir.
So,
Sir, regarding the class part, actually, I appreciate that it's definitely important to have awareness regarding the psychology and psychiatry behind human behavior in everyone, including students, starting from students. Only issue is when we make it part of the curriculum and then it becomes a kind of a formality, like it becomes another chapter in the curriculum. Someone comes and takes a class. Some people listen, some people don't. It should be some more of an experiential kind of a thing, like where they can actually have some experience in situations where people with mental health problems, some maybe it could be watching some movies or videos or discussing about certain scenarios, interactive kind of a thing. So in that way, I think it become more meaningful. Like maybe we take up an example from a scene from a movie where a person with mental illness, mental health problems are depicted, and there are some problems in the way it is shown. We can say that, see, this is what really happens in real life when a patient has psychiatric illness. We give clinical examples, and then in that way, like just the way in which we now expose them to issues like palliative care, issues like other social problems. We have students visiting institutions as part of their academic, curriculum. We do have children who routinely visit hospitals, palliative care centers, there where they need to know how a person with terminal illness, a person with challenging physical situations has to deal. Similarly, mental health issues, they can actually share their experience, their their knowledge. Definitely, that will help. Yes, sir.
okay.
Dayal sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
A word on gatekeeper training.
Pardon, sir.
A
Sir, go
word
ahead.
on gatekeeper training.
Yes, actually, that is one thing that we need to actually have more manpower who are, capable of doing something in this. Like an expert may not be all the time available. Expert may not be the first contact person. So we need to increase, the sensitivity of people who can actually detect and recognize and refer or as contact people. So in that way, I think this has a lot of importance. And since this is a huge public health problem, we know that the number is increasing. We have a lot of people every day reported. And one thing is, like, it's not always significant suicidal acts which may end up in loss of a life. Many times it is much more than that. Even an act of self-harm with significant injury or health issues can be a serious problem. So in those aspects, the non-stigmatizing way of interacting with people and then identifying the problems and helping referral or helping seek help or access help is something which is very crucial. Definitely, we can play a role as professional bodies. We can actually play a role in improving that kind of service in the society, I think, definitely.
Very well. Very wonderful talk, sir. Thanks a lot. I have one small doubt.
Yes.
Usually we'll be getting challenging cases, day-to-day practice, like in coaching centers after intermediate, some students, they may be going to coaching centers. Another thing is, a student may not be interested in biology. He may be interested in mathematics, but parents wants him, force him to join biology sciences only. Otherwise, he may not be interested in that particular institute. He wants to have change of institute, but parents, they won't listen. Such children may be approaching us with depressive features and suicidal ideations. Parents, they won't listen to us. Then what can we do? How best we can manage such cases?
Actually, definitely, that's a practical issue, real life situation. We do see even children of doctors ending up with problems with wrong choice, academic choices, career choices. Definitely, that is there. Again, many times the real input. I have recently had experiences with my own colleagues, because at this stage of my career, what I see is most of my colleagues contact me either for the academic problems or for their children or mental health issues of their geriatric parents. So this is the stage in career which I am in. Like most of my friends have adolescent children or old aged parents. So in both these areas, what happens? Ignorance is a big problem. many people think that taking up a particular course which is not considered mainstream is a serious issue. They somehow force the child to go through the rigorous process of coaching for the entrance examination, then appearing and getting a rank. And so that part of issue is very much there even among our own colleagues and psychiatrists also. Then general public, definitely they don't have any clue what they're doing. They just go with the majority. They just see what is happening around and they proceed. So that definitely is a problem. But even there, I do sense certain other problems, other issues, like the parents who tend to do these things, they have certain characteristics and predispositions, and thus the children who end up in such situations do have some predispositions, and with a very rigorous and stressful situation, definitely that causes a breakdown or that triggers a breakdown. That is what happens. And many places we see that a lot of modeling happens, like 2-3 incidences reported in one place, then you see a series of incidents being reported in the same center. Like people end up taking decisions, taking cues from others, like that person is doing this thing, that person ended up doing this, I also don't know, I think I don't have another choice. So this kind of mimicking happens sometimes in certain areas. That is what we get reported. So I think there is no direct solution to all these things. We can actually improve awareness, keep this point as a topic of discussion wherever possible, wherever we get opportunity, we highlight these issues, and then say that at least if everything goes on well, that is fine. But at least when a person struggles, a student finds it difficult to cope, there is struggling happening, definitely seek help. At least evaluate once and see whether the person is capable of handling this going ahead, or whether the person needs some help. That is something that otherwise it is difficult. Like whenever we say that a person struggling in studies, everyone has psychiatric issues or suicidality, that may not be correct. But subject the person to a formal evaluation and see whether that person needs help or not. That is all that we can tell them, I think. Yes.
Raman Rao, sir,
Dr.
question.
Dayal?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent
I
talk.
see a question in the chat box,
yeah.
I think, sir.
Yes, sir. You can see the questions in chat box. Sir,
Yeah,
when it comes to
I
suicide
think-
discuss.
Yeah.
One
among
question from
medical
me.
students.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Ramana, sir.
Yeah.
Ramana, sir. Please.
How many of your clients, especially belong to the youth, they required ECTs and rigorous psychiatric treatment in your
yes.
department?
Okay, sir. ECT, I think only very few. I think 2 or 3 I would remember. Youth ECT for suicidality per se. We have treated many depressed patients or psychotic patients with ECT, but for suicidality per se, ECT indication, I would say 2 or 3 who required, because in the youth, whereas in adults it is very much higher. And pharmacotherapy, I think majority of youth and adolescents with serious suicidal attempts, serious suicidality, we needed them to undergo pharmacotherapy. Anxiety, depression, OCD, adjustment problems, most of them required pharmacotherapy. The duration only was different, or the combination only was different. Most of them required pharmacotherapy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, regarding questions in chat box, sir.
Yes.
When it comes
There is
to
a
suicide,
concern of self-prescribing sedatives among residents leading
Yes,
to
sir.
overdose, and also poor follow-up rates. Yes, poor follow-up rates, I would say it's very common when it comes to medical professionals as such. Like they're very, sometimes they come to us with an emergency, they talk to us for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then they disappear. Then they come back after 4 years or 5 years with another problem. In between, they are lost of. So coming to medical students, they have their own issues. I remember at least 3 or 4 students in my 10-15 years of work over here. I remember 3 or 4 students who, right from the first year period, came to me for help, were put on treatment, not necessarily suicidal, all of them, at least 2 were suicidal, others had problems. They continued on follow-up, they needed pharmacotherapy. In between, during the course, as electively we discontinued pharmacotherapy because they remitted. Then again, the symptoms recurred when they were in final year. Again, restarted on pharmacotherapy, recovered. while on medications, undergone their examinations, passed in with very good marks, came back to us as interns, and subsequently they are in touch with us during their post-graduation in other specialties, not in psychiatry. But I have very fond memories of students who are very good in follow-up. But definitely there are a big majority who are lost in follow-up, but we ensure that we get in touch with their family members and caregivers during the initial evaluation. Somehow we get them into the loop so that they can at least alert us, they can at least tell us when something is going wrong, or we have their close friends with the consent of the students themselves, they bring their close friends during follow-up. We have made some arrangements so that they can let us know if the person is actually showing some level of distress. So in that way, we have been able to ensure follow-up in at least half of them. The remaining half, as you said, it's very difficult. Regarding the overdose attempts, definitely that is a very serious thing. And whenever we put a postgraduate or doctor or a resident on pharmacotherapy, we make it a point that we inform someone else again with the consent of the person, either a roommate or a family member or a close mentor, faculty in the department. That and we also somehow ensure regular follow-up at least once a week in the initial part, because we know that the initial part of starting any antidepressant anxiolytics can trigger some unpleasant experiences and drive a person's thoughts towards suicide. That is also a problem. So we keep it in mind. Fortunately, till date, we are yet to come across serious attempts of self-harm in any of our students in follow-up, but definitely that is a real risk.
Nagaredi sir.
Yes. I see another question regarding anti-suicide drugs, lithium, clozapine. I would say these are indicated for the primary disorder, then they can have anti-suicidality. Just because a person is expressing or manifesting suicidal behavior doesn't mean that we can start them on clozapine or lithium. If for the primary psychiatric condition, there is an indication for pharmacotherapy. If it is an antipsychotic, clozapine has a definite role. If it is a mood stabilizer, lithium has a definite role. If it is antidepressant, again, lithium has a role. Otherwise, I don't think we can call them as anti-suicide drug per se. They have drugs with anti-suicidal property, but they are not magic bullets. Then ketamine as drink, again, I won't comment on that because I have no experience in using ketamine in oral route for anti-suicidal property. Definitely we can use ketamine is indicated in initial part of seriously suicidal patients. We can use it as a treatment, but I don't think as a regular addition to their day-to-day food and drink that is possible. How to deal with suicidal threats, that again is a very tricky thing, because this could be of various types. If it is a real a serious suicidal patient with a risk of suicide mentioning about it, that is one thing. If it is a manipulative patient with personality issues, legal issues, substance use problems threatening you with suicide, then you need to have a more tactful kind of an approach. But in any of the situations, you have to err on the side of caution. You cannot say that since I have understood that this is a personality problem, I will not take it seriously, because that person again can have a serious suicidal act. But definitely we know that it is much less compared to a depressed patient or a psychotic patient having a suicidal threat. So again, a clinical evaluation is what is important, and then we take some precautions. Whenever a relative is available, we alert them regarding the importance of supervising them and being on guard. In a ward, when they are not attended, we ensure the ward staff keeps an eye on them. These are the things that we do. Role of ketamine I have already mentioned as a treatment in the initial part of this can reduce suicidality. It can reduce dysphoria and depressive symptoms initially, but definitely they will require antidepressants of efficiency to maintain them in remission. Yes.
Dr. Nagaredi wants to ask any question.
Yes.
Dr. Nagaredi, you can.
I think sir had asked about.
That's already
Glutamine,
the same
right?
thing, sir.
Yes,
Answer.
yes.
Sir answer.
What, Sharath?
Sir, చెప్పండి. అన్నీ అయిపోయాయి సార్, క్వశ్చన్స్ అయిపోయాయి.
Yeah, very good, very good. Then we'll ask Sai or Subhani to give word of thanks.
Dr. Sai Kiran, you
Either
can,
of them, not two people.
because Dr. Sai Kiran to give what?
Sai is ready there. Sai,
Yeah.
Sai, unmute.
Sir, is it audible? Yeah. Sir, is it audible?
Yes.
Yes, audible, audible.
Yes. Sir. Good evening, everyone.
Sai,
Happy Independence Day
Sai,
to all of you.
Sai, before you say word of thanks, do all believe that this is a wonderful session we had, no?
Obviously, sir. Obviously.
Good.
It's a
No,
wonderful,
please go on, sir.
marvelous. No,
More or
sir.
less.
Sir, superlatives are not enough to discuss this about this session, sir. Yes, sir. So a very good evening to all of you. A very happy Independence Day to all of you. At the onset, I myself, Dr. P. Sai Kiran, Assistant Professor of Guntur Medical College and Consultant at Guntur. I would like to thank Dr. IVL Garu and Dr. Sarath sir for giving the opportunity to conduct this webinar. Without them, which is impossible. And a special thanks to Dr. Uday Kumar sir, Secretary for the South, President for the South Zone. And in spite of his busy schedule, he accepted the chairperson for this session. And there is no words to discuss about the content of this webinar. You already know about it. And I feel it is an honor to thank our speaker, Dr. Dayal Narayan Garu, for accepting our invitation. Sir, you mastered the show and you made us a cakewalk regarding the practical aspects of the suicide prevention and management also. And sir, we have to learn a lot of things from you. One and most important thing is that the patience. The way you answered all the questions is just marvelous, sir. Thank you one and all. And I thank all the participants for making their time in attending this webinar. Thank you one and all. Long live IPS, long live IPS South Zone, and long live IPS AP. Thank you one and all. Say no to suicide. And over to our boss, Dr. Ramesh Babu Garu.
Very wonderful session, sir. Very wonderful session. I thank Dr. Dayal Narayan Garu for accepting my invitation. This sooner I requested him to give a lecture on this topic. We got a lot of guidance from you. And now and then we'll be in touch with you. If you get any doubts, I request to spare some time with us. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dayal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Uday Kumar. Thank you, Uday Kumar. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always welcome, sir. Always
Ramesh,
welcome.
Ramesh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
you,
Hope I
Kumar.
would meet
Yeah.
Dayal Garu in their annual conference.
Yes, sir. Yes, please do come, sir. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Yeah,
Yes.
good night, sir.
Good night.
Wonderful session we had.
Hmm.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, sir.
రమేష్ బాబు గారు అద్భుతం అండి.